Money, 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 money. Chun, 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 chun. Money. Money. You can't have too little and you can never have enough. You see, my relationship with money has always been a constant chase of finding that sweet spot where I have enough to access the assets and the experiences that I need to enjoy the life that I want to enjoy. You understand what I'm saying? So, if this sounds familiar, come reason with Ash about money matters. Hello, my YouTube family. I know you missed my voice and I missed you. But I've been missing for good reason, and in due time I'll explain all of that to you. Now that I'm back, we're continuing this series on financial wellness because we're allergic to brokenness. We are allergic to brokenness for my non-Jamaicans. In this video, we are talking about improving our credit history. You know, I started a conversation with a personal banking advisor or officer about improving credit score, and you know what I enjoyed about our conversation was how he was able to contextualize the conversation. Because when you come on to your money, you need to think about the context. So to have this conversation and give you the best information on your credit history, whether good or bad, how to improve it, is Mr. Gavin Anderson. And he was born and raised in Jamaica's second city, Montego Bay. He has worked in the field of banking for over 8 years, and he says he developed his desire to uplift and assist others in achieving their financial goals. He's a Cornwall College old boy. I wonder if him feel away if Mr. Cornwall College old boy. And he's a graduate of the University of Technology, where he achieved a Bachelor in Business Administration with a major in marketing. But you know what I want to mention about Gavin is that he's currently employed in the banking sector as a personal banking officer, which core functions in credit facilities such as credit cards, mortgages, and other loan financing. I remember in 2020 when I took out my credit card, yes, me never wait until me big so forget a credit card. Reason being, I didn't see the need for it. But when I took it out in 2020, I think it changed my relationship with credit. You have any? You want some? Let's have a conversation about improving your credit history. Over to you, Gavin Anderson. And as always, we'll be enjoying the beautiful landscape that is of Jamaica land we love. Me traveling around Montego Bay. Is there a particular part of Montego Bay that you enjoy going to?
Well, I would say Doctor's Cave, the beach. That's, I guess, the main attraction for me. Not only in Montego Bay, but in the Western Hemisphere, I'd say one of the better beaches. And let me see if there's anywhere else. Well, mainly that for now. Yeah, I'd say that's the highlight.
I love to travel, and one of the things that I love about traveling is, and I know this will kind of sound kind of, I don't know, I guess country, but I love when I don't have the air conditioning on, so the windows are down and the breeze just a box me. That's my favorite part of traveling. What about you?
I'd say exploring somewhere I've never been to before and trying out different cultures, because you know you have different cultures within our culture, and going to places. For example, I went to Portland a few months ago, and it was just a nice different atmosphere. And the people there, not nobody them at all. They're just welcoming, and they just want for you to have that experience. Especially when I went to Nanny Falls, and the person who was bringing us through that excursion, they were just calm. Just want to ensure you have a good vibe, no stress. And he's just telling us about the plants that were there while we're walking, and he was showing me like nutmeg. And being somebody from Montego Bay where it's just a concrete jungle, you don't really have a lot of plants around you, unless you buck up in a hibiscus or so, but you show me the actual nutmeg plant and everything and what it comes to in the different stages. And yeah, it was an eye-opener. So stuff like that, I'd say, is really the highlight of traveling, learning different cultures and how people do things in their area. So him when I told him that mangoes are being sold in Montego Bay for this amount of money and coconut being sold for this amount of money, him say, really? Like him, them probably stone dog with mango and stone dog with coconut. And they just have it in abundance. So he was a bit surprised when we told him that some of the things that he would have in abundance we are buying. So he was saying he never said that before. So that's, I would say, traveling opens your eyes, you know.
So you don't pack up your bag with the coconut and the mango.
I could have worked with so much. Never planned for it, you know.
So the main topic is improving our credit score. And the first thing I'm going to ask you, what is a credit score?
All right, a credit score, long and short, it is a rating that is given by a credit bureau or a credit reporting platform. And it basically rates how high risk or low risk someone is based on their borrowing history or their credit history or relationships with other banks or other financial institutions. So the credit score is something that may range from about 300 up to about 800, depending on the country or the region, the jurisdiction.
When you say 300 points?
I believe it's points, yeah, that it is termed as 300 points, or the rating is a rating of 300. So a 300 rating is very low, and 700 and above rating is very high or good. I'm sorry, opposite way. 300 is high, which is risk related, and 800 would be low risk. So even though it's a higher score, it's a low risk. That's a quick summary of what it may look like or how it may be laid out on a credit report. So
as a borrower, you want to be low risk, right?
Yes, you want to be low risk. And things that may contribute to the risk rating or for you having a low or a high risk is if you are late for payments or if you are not late, that may determine the risk, the rating. Also, if you may have like a credit card and the limit is always maxed out or close to being maxed out all the time, that can contribute to your credit report being affected negatively. And also, if you are young, unfortunately, sometimes the risk may be a bit higher for younger persons. They might say, oh, young people are no storm yet, so they're more likely to max out or do things that's not good for a bank. So sometimes that may affect it. And another thing is how often you may pull a credit report. That can be negative towards your report. So if they realize they've been jumping banks and going different institutions, it might affect your rating because each time you pull it, the credit report, it brings down the score or the rating.
So you're not supposed to find out what's your rating?
Yes, you should find out, you know, but here's the thing. In Jamaica, we don't focus too much on the rating because a rating might be negative, but your credit history is good as it relates to the details.
Give me an example.
All right, so what might bring down my rating is, for example, my credit card might be maxed out most of the time, but I never miss a payment. And I'm never late. And if you look at the history of my cards, I've always paid and never late. But it's just that because of how the system is set up, the platform is set up, it may bring down a credit report. And secondly, I may be checking different institutions to shop around to see how well I would be regarding an interest rate. That's why I may have a lot of checks done. But it doesn't mean I'm a bad borrower. It just means that the system picks up that I've been checking around, so automatically it brings down my report. The score. on my report. So I, as a loan officer, I don't really pay too much attention to the score, but I look more on the history, the details of each individual loan, if they are consistently late or if they are paying okay. Yeah. And another thing as well is, for example, the income versus monthly payments in loans. So when you would have got probably the last update on your report, you may have had a certain income and it's very much close to the monthly payments that you had. But in the past 12 months, you may have got a promotion. And that income is now a bigger gap between the income and the liabilities. So now you're not in a risky state anymore. So it's not always good to look at the score only. And in Jamaican institutions, we don't allow for it to be the precedence, but we look more on the details.
Okay, that is very enlightening for me. All right, so and you mentioned it, the credit report would tell you your score. But when I applied for a credit card, I don't remember my loan officer telling me my score. He just said, oh, you qualify. So should that information be disclosed to the person who intends to take out a loan?
It can be disclosed, but it's not usually disclosed because in Jamaica, it doesn't carry a lot of weight as it relates to the score itself. But the funny thing is, the score usually gives an average or a synopsis of the details in some cases. It's just that you can't rely on the score only because it might be like just looking at the cover of the book as opposed to reading the book. So it can sometimes give you an idea, just like how you look at the foreword of a book and you look at the back part to know what the book entails. It might give you an idea, but it doesn't tell you until you read the book. So that's how we normally assess the details to see how you manage each of them, if you're late or if your lapse payments or if your income versus liabilities are now in a good state versus several months ago when it was not in a good state. So the score, the officer may not tell you that because it's not, we don't take it as gospel in Jamaica. In America now, they might just look at the score alone and say you qualify for a loan, which is a different jurisdiction. So it might be a lot more weighty in the States when it comes down to the score. So different cultures, different environments. And if you're traveling to the US, you need to bear that in mind because your credit history can make or break you. So
it doesn't matter where you live in the world, your credit history follows you. Is that what you're saying?
To an extent. The credit history in Jamaica is governed differently than in America. It's a different report that is pulled. So if someone comes from America and wants to borrow in Jamaica, they may be asked for their credit report from overseas, wherever they were living, because we in Jamaica don't have access to that. But we would also pull our Jamaican credit report from the Credit Bureau of Jamaica or from Credit Info Jamaica. So we have to use both. So depending on where you're from, it's a different report. So somebody may escape, I should say, as it relates to having a loan in another country. But a good bank or a smart bank would ask for the report in that country where they are from as well. They won't just use the one in Jamaica because you won't see anything.
For young people, probably they're just starting out or they have just a few years in their career and they're at the point now where they may need to take out a loan, probably to diversify some kind of income stream, probably start a little side hustle, or they just want to have additional cash to get something to access different services. What are some of the things that you would advise borrowers to do to improve their credit?
Okay, that's a good question. So firstly, borrowers should ensure that they are not borrowing more than 40% or at least the worst case, 45% of their gross income. So the monthly payment should not exceed that. That's best practice across most banks. And they should ensure that monthly payments are paid in a timely manner. All institutions, including, like, for example, courts, because those companies are on the reports too. So Courts Jamaica, as well as some utility companies. You'd be surprised, like JPS and NWC might be on the report. You'd be surprised. And those contribute to your credit score, even though some banks may not look too much on the utilities, but it does contribute to your score. So secondly, I would say, be sure that you don't miss a payment if you have an obligation. Because look at it like this. If you are lending somebody some money, Ashley, and you never see them before, you never meet them, the first thing you might do is ask somebody, you know him? And that is kind of, in a way, what the credit report is doing. Because all banks report to the credit bureau. So we go to the credit bureau to find out what they have with other banks and how they are paying it. So when we look and see how they are paying it, it caused me to think if I should really take that risk. If you dealt with that bank in that manner, should I take that risk as a bank? So really and truly, monthly payments are very important. It's better to pay something than nothing. If you're going through a rough time, I understand things may happen, go to the bank, have a conversation. Just like in the pandemic, a lot of persons came to the bank and they asked questions. How can I probably get a loan holiday? How can I, be in good standing even though I don't have an income? And persons...
Oh, by the way, something goes on? Loan holiday?
Yes, you can get it's called a moratorium. Loan holiday. So persons may be transitioning between a job and they're in a rough patch and they send a formal request to the bank and say, look, I am in a jam, going through hard times, and I would like to get a holiday to not pay the loan for at least a month or two, or probably the most 3 months, depending on the situation. And the bank would likely grant either a partial moratorium wherein you only pay interest for the months, or they have a full moratorium where you don't pay nothing at all for the period. So things like those help to keep your credit report on a good trajectory. So it's not showing as if you're delinquent. It's going to show that the bank put a pause on your loan payments, so you're not supposed to pay anything for those months. So being in dialogue with the bank is the best thing you can do when you're in hard times. Don't just say, oh, I can't do it, so food come first. We know food come first, but the credit report go haunt you later because you might not have a house to live in, for example, if you had a mortgage. So it can bite you. So that's another thing, to always ensure the monthly payments are paid. And for those who have never borrowed before, to start a good credit history or good credit report, it's good to have a credit card. A credit card, you don't have to use it to borrow per se, because you can pay back after using it, which would not make it a loan. Once you repay before the due date in full, you don't pay no interest. You're just repaying for what you would have used. So that now is a good way to build a credit report. And when you're ready for the actual loan now, the car loan or whatever loan or vehicle loan, personal loan, you would be at an advantage, because now you would have a reputation with a bank. And when we pull a credit report in the future, we'll say, oh, Ashley, I pay her credit card and she can pay back money, man. So let's exercise a bit more trust, because she's sure that she knows to pay back money and give you that bigger loan. So you get even lower interest rates just for showing that you have a good character.
So it's the responsibility of the borrower to show that you can trust, or the credit report would already do that?
Both. You kind of dictate what the credit report shows. So if you are paying back your credit card timely and you're showing that you use it and pay back consistently without abusing it, your credit score will automatically be good. So it does show a mirror effect of how you use it. But not only that, the evidence will be there. Even if the credit report is not an A, the evidence will show that you have been excellent in your repayment. So that is a plus for anybody who is lending you money. Because if you think of it like you having money to lend somebody personally, just think of it. Somebody say, oh, Ashley, that person, them borrow money from me and then pay me back so professionally, you know? In no time, them pay back the full money and, you know, have to worry yourself, man, a good youth. Right away, I feel more confident than somebody say, you know, Ashley, I'm not trust him, you know, around that time, and pay me in January, I'm going to see him again till June. And him just disappear. So the credit report tells a story. So those are the things you may see in a report. And to keep a good credit report, always pay on time and ensure you're not overextending your credit. So if you're borrowing, you don't allow for 40% or more of your income to be tied up in loans, because that can show negatively as if you have a little bit of disposable income. So those are the two main things I would say to maintain a positive credit report, especially as a young person.
I was watching a YouTube video recently, and the financial advisor had said that if your total limit on your credit card is well, she said never use more than 30% of your total limit on your credit card. What do you say? What's your thoughts on that?
I haven't heard a percentage like what you just mentioned regarding the limit on the card. I guess that is a good guide to use, because in the States, what some persons do, they get a big credit card, but they only use a small amount of it, which is, I guess, instead of getting a small credit card in the States, they might get a big credit card, but they only use like probably 20% of the limit to do what they need to do. So the percentage usage is low. And that is a good thing for the credit report. So if you're in the States, I would say that's a good idea. That's a good idea. But
what about Jamaica? Does it matter in Jamaica?
It would actually contribute to the report being a bit better in Jamaica. But as I said, in Jamaica, we don't look at the score as much as in the States. We look at the history. The reason why I wouldn't encourage it on a whole is you can end up being tempted too much to use that big limit if your income is not up to par. So having a big limit and your income is low is risky, because you might end up say, you know what, I have an emergency, so let me spend this big amount. It's good to have a budget for your credit card. So, you know, even if you're in rough times, you don't overextend yourself. You probably take a loan instead, rather than taking a big credit card limit, because it can bite you. So it's possible to be okay, because I've seen a lot of disciplined persons who take a big credit card limit, but they don't allow it to pass half. It's possible. But I'd recommend you have a big credit card if your income is also big or next to that, or not too far from that. So that's my recommendation. But
all right. So I have a few, maybe more than a few, viewers who are probably still paying student loan or just finished paying student loan, and honestly, it was them history not look so pretty, because them miss and them going arrears and all kind of something happened. And they're probably watching this and they're like, boy, my credit history is doomed. Is it actually doomed? Can it be resuscitated? Can it improve?
Life support. Yeah, the thing is, you can recover from a bad credit report. You definitely can. And the main thing is to clear the debt in entirety. That's the main thing. After that, waiting at least a year or a few months, you will start to see the changes in your credit score being improved. The history of what happened will still be there, but there is somewhat of a forgiveness period. For some banks, it's like after 3 years, you can borrow as regular again. And some banks, after 1 year, you can borrow as regular, but the interest rate may be a higher rate because you'd be deemed as a high risk borrower. So having a better credit history gives you favor with the banks. So you get better percentage financing. If you're trying to buy an asset like a house, you might get up to 97% financing if you have a good credit history. But if you have a bad credit history, you might still get the financing, but it would be like 80% or 85% because you'd be deemed as high risk. So the bank taking less risk with you because of the history that you had. So there is hope, and after, for example, 3 years of showing or demonstrating good repayment history, that will somewhat bring you back to where the best credit score or the best interest rates would lie. Because the longer you would have gone with good credit history, you're recovering in entirety from that mishap which happened. But you don't want to, for example, just recover last month and you expect to borrow as nothing happened immediately. But when you wait and keep demonstrating good credit history, you have a small loan and you repay it good. You have a little credit card, you repay it good for at least a year, and some banks 3 to 5 years, then it's completely forgiven after like 5 years. Sometimes some banks I think up to 7 years, but I think they are now reducing that forgiveness period. To my knowledge, for at least one bank, I know reducing that forgiveness period, so you can actually borrow again within a shorter period of time. But the main thing is to ensure you fix the problem and show evidence of it being fixed for at least a year.
Okay, so it is redeemable.
It
Great.
is.
Now, as we wrap up, I want to know what is on your travel, which places in Jamaica, let's start in Jamaica first. Which places in Jamaica are on your travel bucket list?
Travel bucket list. Well, I haven't
Do you have one?
I don't have one on paper, but I'd say in my mind, I haven't been to St. Thomas before. I haven't been to Blue Mountain before. I think I would do that. I would do Blue Mountains. I'd do somewhere in St. Thomas. I was told some good excursions are there. Where else haven't been? I'd say I haven't done enough in the South Coast. Like, is that where the bar that's out in the water? What's the name of that bar again?
I think it's a Pelican Bar. I think so.
Pelican? I think it's Pelican
so. I'm not
Bar.
so sure.
Yeah, I haven't been to Pelican Bar. I was told about that. I'll definitely try that. I'll definitely do that. I love the water. I love to try new things like a zip line or a ATV or yeah, something with that adrenaline, as well as the water experience is always good. So anything of that nature, I'm up for it.
All right, sounds good. So what about within Montego Bay now? Is there anywhere that you want to go and visit?
I haven't been to Choka is it? I'm trying to remember which of the Choka it is. That's
I think it's in St. James. I think one of them is in St. James. I'm not so sure where. I think it's by Anchovy side. I'll find it. I'll Google map it.
Yeah, do it, man. Do it.
Yeah.
That one I haven't been. And Good Hope is it in St. James too? Or
I'm not so sure.
Not so sure. Yeah, but I've heard good reviews of Choka, so I definitely want to do that. And I've been to quite a few places in St. James, but I'm thinking where I haven't been, which I would want to do, but I'm up for it. Sometimes you find out some places you never know exist, and persons lead you to it and you say, this really went about a long time. Like, you just make. But yeah, I'm still on that journey to discover new places, hidden gems, a lot of hidden gems, and also in Westmoreland too. Benta Falls, is Westmoreland? Yeah, Benta River Falls, near to that side. I went recently, but St. James to be specific, yeah, I feel like I need to do Choka, and I need to do some more regarding that. I think there is a zip line in place. It's probably the same Choka, Probably the same Choka. My mind is the Choka.
For the next series. Thank you so much, Gavin.
Yes,
this was very informative. Very, very informative.